exciting to be in person. It's even more exciting that we are here for of the Redding Consortium for Educational Equity. So thank you to those who are online with us. So hopefully you can hear us loud and clear. I know we might be having some technical issues when we get to hearing from you all online. So we'll be working through that in the chat. Just let Haley know, and we will make sure to keep you engaged. They can hear. That's great. So again, welcome to our full body meeting, our second person. So we're at DSU as well. It's an exciting development, and we're hoping, hint, hint, people who are making business of this can be a regular place. I think it's a great space, and more to come here. So we are continuing tonight our discussion of action steps. December, not need to hear my voice. December was our strategic planning session, so we've been processing that information since. You've received emails, and thank you for responding to those. We do have staff here to support us from the Redding Consortium, and so that everybody knows who is here, we are going to go around the table just so for folks who haven't been here in person in a while or don't know each other, we can know what members are in the room. And of course, well, why don't we just go ahead and do that, and then I'll finish my remarks after that. So I will start. Tiffany Lockman, I know most of you. I am state senator here in the 3rd district and co-chair of
Matt Denton, co-chair of the consortium.
Tina Rivera, here.
Mike Smith, Dizzy's friend.
Shelley Rouser, chair education.
Kevin Kelly, I am the chair of the Women's and Shooting Advisory Council.
Jeff Menzer, superintendent of the school district.
Lincoln Roller, superintendent.
Martin Lucas,
Chuck Longfellow, chief financial officer, Christine School District. Here for Dr. Michelle.
Aaron Bass, CEO of Eastside Charter School.
Ron K, Office of Management and Budget.
Terrell Greenberg,
Rick Geisberger, Department of Finance.
Thank you all for being here, and online, do we have members that you know are present? Sure, we have Secretary Holiday. You want people to no, they did. So
hi, everyone. Good evening. Mark Holiday.
Superintendent Jones.
Good evening, everyone.
Those are the members I see online right now. Thank you. And thank you for folks who are non-members who are here as well. We won't give them spot to introduce yourself, also to be mindful of time, but thank you. And then of course, I'm here from you through the meeting. You can see the agenda in front of you. We're going to be hearing work group chair updates. We're going to be sharing the results of the feedback survey based on the planning session. I'm going to have the opportunity to review the equity data dashboard. My co-chair, illustrious Matt Den, is going to give us some status updates on the full day pre-K and providers of that. And Katie Semmel will be delivering the equity data dashboard full presentation. So I think we have a pretty substantial agenda of just results and outcomes of the work that we've been engaging in over the past few years, and an opportunity for us to delve into that bit of feedback and make sure that we continue to stay on track with our own work. And of course, looking forward to alignment with other entities such as the Learning Learning Collaborative. And with that, oh, these are our norms. Sorry, I always skip through the actual slide numbers. So we do just remind you that this is a hybrid meeting. So we're going to work on our hybrid meeting etiquette. We do ask that even if you're here in the room, that you please announce your name before speaking to identify yourself for those listening. If you are online, if we do have the ability for you to speak up, we would just have to mute yourself when you're not speaking. And as a note for folks listening in, the meeting will be recorded, and we are going to post the complete meeting for the public. I think we did a bit of a roll call there. We went around introducing ourselves. For any consortium members who haven't been recognized that are online, just make sure to put your name in the chat so that we know that you are here and we mark you as. All right, so with that, I think we certainly have a quorum. Great. And we were given a copy of the minutes if you have it in your packet, but you were emailed them. And so I would just ask if someone would like to make a motion.
Second.
Awesome. We can do a show of hands on that one. So all in favor of approving the minutes, show your hand. Anyone opposed? And online, I think you could just indicate your approval in the chat as well. That holds water legally. And so meeting minutes are approved. So now we're going to move into the survey feedback results. Again, I just want to thank the 20 members who completed the survey, where we were looking to prioritize the, those elements of what we wanted to be working on moving forward. These will help us make sure that we're staying on point with our action steps, in the wake of that official meeting. And I'm going to hand it over to Elena and Haley, our staff from the Institute for Public Administration at UD, to give us a bit of a summary.
Hi, everyone. My name is Elena Robinson. I serve as a staff member with the Redding Consortium, and I also work at the Institute for Public Administration. So I'm going to be going through the survey results. And once again, thank you to all the members who filled out the survey. Your input was greatly appreciated. So for the first question, it was about prioritizing and following through on the Redding Consortium mandates. And so the most important takeaway from the survey was that members wanted the consortium to fulfill the Redding charges and work on the current list of activities in the status report.
Apologies to Elena. We're just gonna pause for just a moment because we do have who wanted to stop by and
Hi, everyone. I see so many familiar faces. I just wanted to welcome everyone. Hello. I just wanted to welcome everyone to Delaware State University on the riverfront. We're very pleased to be here and look forward to ongoing meetings with this particular group on a regular basis.
universe.
So thank you very much for being here. Good to see everybody. Take care. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you for the presentation. Okay, Elena.
Yeah, that's great. So in terms of the survey results, so the most important takeaway was fulfilling the Redding charges and working on the current list of activities that were listed in the status report. And we discussed the status report in the October meeting last year. The second most important priority was adding a measurement requirement component to the Redding Consortium's definition of educational equity to ensure that outcomes are being met. And then what was considered the least important, but is still equally important to the other charges, was to determine a way to provide personnel support related to RFPs, which is grant for proposals for the Redding grants and scholarships. So for the second survey question, what was considered most important was defining a relationship between the Redding Consortium and the Wilmington Learning Collaborative by coordinating the work and the resources of both initiatives. The second most important was promoting cross-district collaboration by leveraging resources and identifying opportunities for partnership. So an example discussed previously at another consortium meeting was the example of the Brink Consortium and Boost 22 and Boost 26. And then the last takeaway that was ranked as least important, but is still important as well, is shifting the focus to middle school and high school students, grades 6 through 12, since many of the initiatives, like the WLC, promote a focus on early childhood education. And then for question 3 from the survey was about leveraging school and community-based partnerships. So what was considered most important from the survey results was collaborating with statewide agencies, nonprofits, and community-based organizations working on issues related to public education. The second key takeaway that was ranked as important was empowering Wilmington residents and community members to voice their concerns about education. And then the last point was mapping out work outside organizations and education within the city of Wilmington and northern Newcastle County that in order to avoid overlap with Redding supportive programming within the city. And now I'll let my colleague Haley Burns talk about some of the feedback that we received in the consortium.
Thanks, Elena. So in the survey, there was also an opportunity to provide open-ended feedback. So we collected the open-ended feedback and divided it up into a few different categories and ways that we thought we could make the feedback actionable. One of the categories is around Redding structure. So reviewing things like membership and rethinking some of the work group structure in terms of active and inactive work groups. There were also some ideas for potential. Oh, wait, I think I went too fast. Sorry. There are also some ideas for potential research on topics like school choice, educator equity, and asset mapping, like programs and services in Wilmington, with the focus on not duplicating efforts that are already going on. We also got some really great suggestions for improving Redding's community engagement efforts, like hosting town halls and doing a better job of letting schools and communities know the work that Redding is doing, like some of the timelines and intricacies of the RFP process, and also doing a better job of gathering feedback for the community to make sure that we're working on issues that they care about. So lastly, we also received some helpful input on how the RFP process related to the Redding recommendations could improve moving forward. And we plan to share the feedback with DOE and sort of improve Redding's internal processes too. Separately, but also related to this, we also received a lot of great feedback about the RFP process from school districts who applied for Redding funds and how the process could improve on their end as well. And we plan to share that feedback with DOE and Redding folks as well. So thanks again for filling out the survey. We know that you're all very busy, and this information really helps us plan for the future of Redding's work and make sure that we work on things that you all think are important and care about. So thanks. Thank you, guys. Does anyone have any questions about the slides that were presented? So we did want to, and I promise after this we will stop, analyzing and reanalyzing, but we had those open-ended survey questions and we got quite a bit of input from those. And we thought that it would be helpful as a way to kind of put like the cherry on top of our analysis for us to engage a little bit with the open-ended feedback, the laundry list of ideas, and see if we could identify in small groups how we might draw from this kind of laundry list to actually identify a few actionable items that we should be, bringing into our agenda, as opposed to us just sort of looking at these open-ended items that were entered into a survey and figuring out ourselves whether to run with them. Wanted to see from your perspective as members that there's something that we should really be gravitating towards on that list. So with that in mind, I know that I'm not sure exactly how we're going to be breaking into small groups, but want you to discuss with your group, what do you think the top 3 actionable priorities from that list ought to be and why? And we're only going to do that for about 5 minutes, and then we'll just go around and share out to see if we've got some new interesting things to add to our work plan here.
Yeah, so I was going to say with the person or two sitting next to you, just discuss from what you see in the survey results, like what you think could be the top 3 actual priorities for the Redding Consortium to work on, and then we'll discuss for 5 minutes and then share out after that. And everyone in the chat will have the opportunity to share out too. They'll just
Thank you, Elena. So maybe like little groups of 3. Let's do that.
And just a survey question, 1, 2, 3.
and the feedback.
No. This group we have, I think, fully vetted, and you guys have given us your priorities on that. Let's look at these both open-ended bullet points. All right.
Yeah.
Group to share your collective to come up with what you ever good with. I would love to.
I said, you guys show up. What is all these three, we got two more. All the nine states. The only area that I thought. There's a lot of things to like. So I thought, yeah, it is. Well, I just managed to focus on Redding. What we can learn. Little mics.
It'll work, but I'm sure that the next time. Oh, no, they don't.
I need to put some more. Ask some questions here.
Really. I think that's. Yeah, I still think that's a priority. We have to finish.
Specifically.
Everyone just thinks. That's so weird.
I know you're all. Yeah. What we're still fine with. So.
You're undoubtedly. You know.
Like a run of shows, presenting like which slides and everything. And then how it's presenting. So it's like the same information, but just like it's almost presented one. Maybe you. I don't know, do you like that one that's
I would consider go. Have a Howard, you got high school, for all intents and purposes, we got a high school.
That's 15.
Most of those are. Yeah. That's because they're on device.
They all have. Like they were different jobs or bad. right? Like I gotta have this. Like,
I always thought that. What it's doing. That's it.
Welcome, Senator Augustus, for coming up from Kent County and joining us and being our new member representing the minority caucus of the Senate. So welcome.
Get a passport.
Just told them that see our roots, and they said, no worry.
Welcome. Awesome. Well, let's make it, I think, easy and hopefully relatively quick. We are going to keep an eye on the time because we have more good stuff to hear about, but we'll just go around the table. And if you can just give us your quick top 3 actionable priorities as you have identified them.
Obviously, I'm the person who messes up the conversation.
Sure.
So what I would say is it's very difficult to choose from this list because of the fact that still trying to figure out where the WLC and Redding, how they're going to work together. So how do I say what Redding should be doing next if I have no idea what the connection between Redding and the WLC is actually going to be? It seems like I'm kind of putting the cart.
That's a great question. Maybe we should have framed it as what should be prioritized generally, because we are having that conversation.
Yeah, we're talking about what should be prioritized generally in education, different conversation than what should Redding be prioritized.
Okay, that's fair.
You know,
Fair.
so.
So you guys just stop there.
I bet you.
What?
We bet
every group brought that.
Oh, yeah.
Well,
Well, then that's
look,
great.
we had some thoughts about things we weren't sure the Wilmington Learning Collaborative was going to do, but we
Okay.
don't want to preempt them and say they're not going to do those things, so.
Oh, man. Driving home the.
Should have started with.
We'll come back to you. Yeah. Okay, but did anything else? So nothing. jumped out as worthwhile.
I'll let it.
Now, we also talked about when communication and engagement, really exploring opportunities that expand beyond education-based partnerships, right? What are those community partnerships that we're looking at out of school, after school time? Like, what are those resources when we talk about wraparound services that we'll look at a holistic
Yeah.
approach to?
Nice.
So the thinking was the WLC is going to be it's going to be very focused on what happens in those buildings.
Sure. Okay.
And So it might be that this focus is more what happens outside the building. The flip side of that is, I don't think that the WLC is precluded from outside the buildings. They're just probably initially going to be more focused on.
Thank you for that. And again, what you say is not, gospel does not preclude WLC from doing anything, doesn't force us to do anything. We're just looking to surface things that seem like they're more important than others, and where we can hone in and where we can, work with our partners on WLC to figure out whose lane is that. So don't worry, we will continue to be attentive to that. All right, thank you. Looking at you.
We agree with the same conversation about everyone. But the other pieces is back to gathering feedback about community engagement and reporting out.
Okay.
So there should be sharing and also gathering feedback, promoting alignment of community and wraparound services with efforts of schools. So looking at how do we make sure that we can bring some great efforts in there. The last piece was about how do we better alignment between DOE's RFP process. And so I think sometimes it's an issue between intent and outcome, when there might be a RFP that then goes to the Department of Education, and then there's some misunderstandings or missteps in how it might come out versus how it was intended to be. So we'd love to figure out some alignment between Department of Ed and Redding.
Okay, DOE alignment. And no matter how many asterisks you put on your answer, these are all helpful, so. Thank you. All right, Margie, something?
Sure. So, complete the existing Redding Consortium mandates before beginning new initiatives, but that then led to a discussion about the work groups, evaluating whether the work groups are the right work groups and the membership and the charge of the work groups and the deliverables for work groups. And then coordinating with organizations and agencies involved in education. And then lastly, the streamlining the application process, really eliminating or simplifying the RFP process.
Okay. All right, that was great. Nice to meet you. Thank you, guys. Xavier, were you in with them? All right, great. Kevin?
I was just saying.
Oh, how many people were in this group?
The right people.
Okay, all right. We got Shelley, Ray, Cora.
Sure, that's fun. They were in our group. We didn't have
Okay, all right, we'll jump right in.
Okay.
So, echoing a lot of things that were said, we did start with the coordination between WLC and Redding as well with our initial, and we figured that we kind of had a buy with the survey. We were assuming that everything on the front page is a given, so we figured, all right, so as far as priorities go, we talked about the potential for partnerships with nonprofits. We kind of collapsed a bit of that to say that when we're talking about coordination with organizations, for what purpose is kind of answered in that second to the last bullet there. So when you talk about the coordination with organizations in the community, let's talk about it with the purpose of that focus on the social determinants work. So that was that. And then strengthening community engagement was at the top of our list. Although we did point out that we don't think that town hall meetings are the best structure all the time for that engagement. So, or most times not. So we definitely think that that should be elevated as a top priority, but finding a better structure.
Kelly's into TikTok.
Nice.
Are we?
I think it is you guys.
Okay.
Yep.
So we were talking about engagement and the Redding Consortium and WLC. So can't really get into that without defining better what everyone's role is. Community's not gonna know. Well, if somebody's knocking on the door to talk about WLC and now you're talking about Redding, what do they all do and how do you? We gotta sort that out first. We talked about and about collaborating with nonprofits, local organizations, and the social drivers. I hate to, but so social drivers, we do that in health equity. So how you how do you mobilize community resources and get those resources growing the boat toward education equity, just like we think about it with respect to health equity, and that can be housing, food, and all that kind of stuff. So I think a lot about the same drivers for health disparities throughout education disparities. So how do we mobilize the community resources and then bring them to bear on behalf of students? And so that collaborative partner with nonprofits who are doing that work already, CEOs and others, large and small, and then partnering on those that social studies, those social determinants outside of education. That could be work with, it could be wealth building, it could be economic development. I would say next to me. And then one thing that really hit me is, and then maybe I'm new to this, so have we defined education equity and when we have achieved it? Okay, that's good.
Oh, when we have achieved it?
Yeah, so, okay, what is education equity? I know how we define health equity. Education equity, and then how we measure it, what's the baseline? How are we measuring progress against it? And then when are we at least theoretically there or really there? So I did, that's not anything we can do. Definitely. So we can add like what's about this?
You're good.
Very good.
Doing good.
Got props from there. So I guess I'm all right.
I think you all deserve props. That's a great point. We do have a definition, but I'm not sure that we would say that we have those other things that you mentioned. And your message is received in addition to all your great feedback. We will not, to my understanding, be having another one of these meetings until after, well, we will be having another one of these meetings in 2 months, and we are working now to set up our WLC alignment meeting. So before we meet again, that will have occurred, what I'm trying to say, and perhaps we will even have gotten to the point of being able to offer a public facing report on what we decide. But so that is the wheels are turning for that. So message received, and more to come on WLC alignment. Right, perfect. Very good. Thank you for taking that. Yeah.
Quick reminder to just speak up a bit. We're getting on the chat that it's a little hard to hear, so just
Don't
articulate, speak up.
yell. If you feel like you're yelling, you're probably at the right.
Exactly.
Right
I feel
level.
like
I'm definitely yelling. All right, well, thank you for engaging that with us. We really, really appreciate it. And now we are going to move into. Oh, sorry, we do have one more share out.
we're gonna see Secretary Holiday, if you're able, we were gonna test the audio. We weren't sure if we could hear the folks on Zoom. He has his camera off now, but if you're able to try and speak up, I'm gonna see if we can hear you.
Sure, I'm here, and as
No,
you
we
could,
can't hear you.
you can't hear me?
If it doesn't work, we have it in the chat.
Okay.
Sure.
Let's
Try
see.
speaking again. Secretary
Can anyone hear me?
Little bit.
Well, if you can hear me, much of what I was thinking and what I put in the chat has been covered. I think the relationship and the communication, et cetera, between the WLC and Redding is absolutely essential. That'll, of course, start happening, I would imagine, now that the board has come together and is in the process of hiring an executive director. That and the importance of wraparound services and aligning those with the efforts that are not just happening in WLC schools, but all schools, and how that relates to community-based organizations and the relationships that those folks have with the schools, I think is paramount. So thank you.
Thank you, Secretary.
And for those who could not hear, there was a lot of echoing, not literal, but of the things that we were saying, focusing on aligning wraparound services, alignment with WLC, and following through an existing mandate. Okay, thank you. All right, so moving on, it is now your turn, Matt, to give us an update on full-day pre-K.
So this is an almost exclusively positive update, those changes. We have, as you may remember, one of our primary recommendations, financially, a couple of years ago was that the state fund an effort to try to ensure that, any 3 or 4-year-old child who is in a feeder pattern for a high poverty kindergarten program in the city of Wilmington have the opportunity to have full day, pre-K program with staff that was actually compensated at a level where we could recruit and retain higher quality frontline early childhood staff, so that we would have people who would come into the jobs and stay in the jobs and get benefits and not jump off when an opportunity presented itself to work at a full-time teaching job at a school district or something else. And the idea being that, we want these kids to show up on the first day of kindergarten prepared to learn. And Senator Buxton asked me when he came in, why haven't prior plans worked for Wilmington? And I think we thought that one of the reasons was that in some of these areas, we kind of did things halfway and then questioned why we didn't get good results from them. And I think pre-K was a good example of that we were putting kids into pre-K, but wasn't necessarily for the duration that it needed to be, and we weren't giving the right incentives to the frontline providers to make sure that we had and kept the best people. So the goal at the outset was to have enough slots so that every kid that we were trying to target would have the opportunity. Kind of an inexact science, because parents obviously have a choice where to send their kids, so we can't know ahead of time which providers are going to be serving those kids. And we also don't know the exact number because we don't know how many kids are going to be coming into the kindergarten programs every year. But the bottom line good news is that after a couple of years of sort of non-linear efforts to try to get to the right form of the RFP, I would say, I think we're at a good place. And there are going to be 190 kids enrolled in the upcoming fiscal year in full day pre-K programs that we believe are primarily targeted at that set of kids that we wanted to target. And 190 is a pretty significant percentage of the total that we thought would make up that number of kids who were in that feeder pattern. The programs are funded at a level that are supposed to allow for hiring and retention of high quality frontline staff that will stick around. So we have what looks like the beginnings of the right things in place. And most of the funding that's in the operating budget is being used by those 190 slots. So there's enough for 1 or 2 more providers to come in under the current RFP for the Redding slots. But I think it's in a good place, which is great news. And I think the primary work ahead now is to try to circle back and make sure that these are the right centers, because again, there's no way to know for sure until we know that the kids are actually enrolled. So make sure that these 7 centers that are offering these programs are in fact serving the kids that we want to be targeting. And then obviously, as time goes by, make sure that we're getting and keeping the frontline workers and ultimately see that we get some results in terms of kindergarten readiness for the kids that show up in kindergarten. Very anecdotally, we've had 4 providers who were in on the very front end of this, and the feedback that we've gotten from them has been very positive. They have been able to get and keep staff, and they've had their first set of kids transition from their programs into kindergarten. And the feedback has been that they've gotten good results on the kindergarten assessment. And who knows, cause and effect and things like that. But the initial feedback has been very good. So I think we can be pleased with where this is now, and very appreciative of the work that DOE has been putting in to try to get it stood up in place. So tentative, good news.
Matt, what's the size of the universe? 1 million gallons.
Our ballpark, I mean, it's all ballpark. Our ballpark was that there were probably a little over 200 kids total that were in the feeder patterns for incoming kindergarten that would be, if they didn't choice out, that would be in
For that age in Wilmington, probably, I think, so.
Yeah,
But
but
I
it
don't
was,
have the specific.
it could be off because we were having to work, they can choice into all kinds of kindergarten programs. You can't just take the numbers for the kindergarten classes. Christina had a great place. Yeah, but we were trying to get the target number for the population based on kids who were going to. Yeah.
We're talking about 4-year-olds who are going to be transitioned to 5-year-olds that are going to kindergarten. I think the other question would be about it. I'm not sure if if you have an MOU with districts, depending on where the early learning or the childcare center is located. We cover as a district the largest number because a large number of those providers sit in Red Clay proper. So while they may be a Christina Peter child, they end up staying in Red Clay. So that might be the next kind of iteration to get our early learning leads to engage so that that MOU is addressed. So that if you're looking at longitudinally the kind of study or look at trends as to where they go, we can figure out where those early learning centers are, early childcare centers are, and where they're actually matriculating to go to school. So whether they have developmental delays, the child mind is a part of it, but look at a more robust kind of analysis of the program. But definitely good. We're 194
Yeah.
little, then that's definitely a good thing.
190 students who, or 190 seats are now there that 2 years ago would have been partial day or completely non-existent. So
So to be clear, so we're talking about 3-year-olds and 4-year-olds going into 5 or just 4?
Total three, I think it's total 3 and 4-year-olds.
Yeah.
Three.
good question.
I do think the ROI is important though, for is this effective? And then if not to get rid of it, I think it's wonderful. I do think that what you do to tweak that, to make sure it is effective.
That's an excellent question. And just to brag on Matt a little more than he is usually willing to do on himself, but I think the Redding model, I guess, that we put together here that does all the things that he was describing, the full day, the quality standards. In particular, I think that piece that allows to pay for the type of workforce that we want to recruit and retain, I think is certainly not something that's been unprecedented in terms of scope that people have thought of, but it's that model is kind of being picked up now by DOE. They just put out sort of a universal RFP for ECAP all over the state that emulates exactly what we put together for Redding. So I think that's just something that I'm proud of. That was really on you, and I'm very proud that that's something that we elevated. And I think it's a great report to have on Dawn Alexander's birthday. That's why she is not here, and I think she would be thrilled if she were.
We're good to use this as a Reading as a pilot for how we can do it statewide, because my wife is an pre-K teacher, and the one thing she always says statewide level before we do pilots or something is it's all great theoretically, but in practice, you don't have enough jobs. So you don't fund that properly. I mean, the only reason why she did it, to be honest, is because we could get our son in the program. So that way, he had a spot. She's like, fine, I'll do it. And I think a lot of people are in that situation for many years, and clearly that's not issues. So I think anytime we can pilot it and grow.
Yeah.
So the fact that this group's been able to do that.
Yeah. That would be a great legacy to have that model.
Yeah.
Everyone for everybody.
She does see the improvement of the child, just even just coming in at 3
Yeah.
versus just coming in at 4. She's starting to learn. Fast.
Yeah. Awesome. Ray, you had your hand up in the.
Yeah, good evening, everyone. My question is a data question. Do districts ensure this routinely collect the data where if a child went to a pre-K program at kindergarten registration and which program they went to, is that data being collected consistently?
Or that, no, yes, because we do the
It is?
kindergarten center, the
They
goal.
won't collect it? Okay, we need it. Okay, great. That's all I want to know.
All right. Thank you.
Just simplifying, you mentioned that the workforce retention, they're able to retain. So I think keeping a close eye on that would be really important, because that would be a really big challenge. We've heard a lot about that. We got heard it from Visual with Brazil, but it's that turnover and losing people. I know, many of us see it in other areas. So keeping an eye on what is making them stick. Yeah, and sometimes it's not just like the funds are critical, but is there anything else that makes sense? And keeping in mind that.
It seems to be a very visceral fear among providers. I know seat expansion, which seems, like it's just what there would be a negative side effect. Folks are worried about losing people to other new providers that are coming into the space or expanding their services to the city. So it's just something we want to be thinking about and trying to avoid unintended consequences. Okay. I think that is it on pre-K update. Thanks, Pat. And so now we can work into the Reading Scholarship update from the educator work group, Representative Smith.
Sure, so, just to give everyone a reminder, our work group was passed and came up with scholarship. We also came up with professional development. So next meeting, we'll be able to update you on professional development. So 102 applications were received. I think it was overall very well done once we finally got it right. It took, if you remember, iteratively speaking, we had to go through a few times. But you'll kind of see the breakdown on the next slide of the race and ethnicity of the applicants. I think the one thing that's concerning is we talked about, especially in healthcare and education, get more males involved. And 81% were female applicants. So the other thing I heard recently, both in economic forecasts, were one of the biggest challenges facing America is 18 to 31-year-old men not entering the workforce at all. So in your mentoring, in your communities, and every other capacity, you get them out of their parents' basements or wherever they are, and potentially get them in some of these fields. That would be a good thing. So 81% female, 15% male, 4% other. There was IHEs represented, Wilmington Youth led the pack, and then ESU. 13% for undergraduate coursework, 87% for graduate coursework. One of the questions we're trying to dive into, we think we know what the 13% is, but we're not positive. You do know? Yeah, okay. We think we know, but we want to make sure that you guys have a formal answer to that question, but we think we know what that is. So we're going to try to provide that at the next meeting or through a group email, but that was one of the questions I had followed as well. And we think it's from stuff.
Can I just ask for, in case there's anyone listening in who has no idea just on a baseline what the scholarship is, could you describe that?
Yeah, so I mean, all of our work was based off of leadership in schools. And so we want folks that wanted to gain better leadership in our schools and try to get to that next level to offer that scholarship so they can go and get that coursework that's going to then retain them in their job or some cases recruit, but it's really based around attainment. And so this would do that. That's why it was interesting to get the 13% back as undergraduate work, and we think that's a lot of pre-K realm from stubs.
Right, and it's only for schools within the city limits.
Yeah.
So for folks who are currently educators at those schools to
Right.
pursue further education, to advance their leadership.
Yeah, that number.
So what's the scholarship cover? Everything or just part of it?
No, just partial. Of course, the finance guy is.
That's me.
No, we did not fund it to that
Sorry.
level, that it can cover everything, but they do get a partial scholarship that would help them towards certain number of classes and books.
And from the dozen or so, I don't remember exactly how many schools are on that Redding list, apparently.
So I have them.
You-
For anyone, we have Harlan Elementary, Christina, we have Bancroft, Byard, and Stubbs. Greg Clay, we have Shortledge, Louisville Language Elementary, Highland, Warner. Charters, there's Edison, Eastside, Great Oaks.
And my understanding from Elena is that we received applications from every single one
We
of those
did
schools.
receive an application notice. And I would like to, yes. Bill.
Well, one, I think it's amazing and kudos to Redding, literally all of you for doing this. And thank you all for doing this work. With that being the case, I think the 13%.
Yeah.
Is you have people that are already in graduate school and it's reimbursement. And so some of them were already there. And so they're going regardless. I have staff that are looking at their undergraduate work. They're undergraduate now and having them go to Wilmington Youth, and then hope that the funding is there in the future. And that they can be reimbursed is a huge chasm for them, and that's why they're not applying.
Okay.
So they're thinking, this might not be there, why should I even apply? And I might be taking my paraprofessional paycheck to either pay for something essential or something that I hope to get back in the future. I have a number of people that I work with who haven't applied because they're scared. And one proposal I had shared with earlier was that if it's possible that people can apply, so they would apply to any of the Delaware schools, so UD, DSU, Relay, WilMU, get into the school and apply to Redding. if they get in and they, at the very least have a 3.0, a C, pick whatever the grade point average is, whatever it is. Then, if they have a B when they finish the semester, then Women's University would simply hold their amount that's due. They're still responsible for it. If they had a 3.0, then Reading will pay that. If not, it's up to them. That way it gives them such security that, oh, this is something that I can definitely do. And if we don't have the funding for it, and I know that in advance, Reading says we don't have the funding for it, which I'm hoping this goes on for many, many years, then there's some guarantee for them. And that would be why you have more graduate level people who are going to go regardless. Versus the undergraduate, because I'm trying to become a teacher. I'm trying to get up to whatever the teacher starting salary is.
Yeah, we'll be talking about that.
The funding, isn't a year-to-year funding source right now. But I do think it's important for us to do two things. Unpack the story behind the educators who did take advantage of it and follow up with them. Learn about the impact of it, see if there's opportunities to tell their story, put the spotlight on that, so that there could be the opportunity for investment in the future. When it comes to undergraduates and placements in Wilmington, I know for DSU, the biggest thing is just getting students from Dover to Wilmington. And I think that there's something to be said for, if this is something that has been effective, then what other kind of investments can we make that actually help offset the housing and transportation costs to get them there, so that we can make that bridge between teachers ready to make that leap and they want to work in an urban setting. They often go back home to Philadelphia. They want to,
That's our biggest.
but they are in Dover living on campus and can't afford to actually get to the city, live in the city and drive, back and forth.
I will personally drive to do it.
Yes.
I mean, to your point, we're in that weird spot of the group, because we're now, it's happening. And now we need to now use these folks to come out of that almost as like our marketing tool and champions to be able to talk to others about. So I think we're gonna try to iterate and change things as it goes. But that's great. Because you are right.
Raise your hand with that, friend.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Aaron Bass will be there in 1 hour.
Like, Uber.
All right, go ahead. Superintendent Fuller.
Brandywine Wine actually has.
Oh.
Yes, mine, but there was an economic, socioeconomic cost that was applied.
Okay.
And it's because we have a specialized program at MTS. So I think equally needy, equally serving. So I would just request that second, we take it.
So well taken.
Are you saying the gifted program basically knocked you out? Well, that makes no sense.
Well, is there a way to, well, I think that's definitely something that would be considered as well, the other points. And TCAP?
Just piggybacking a little bit on what Erin was saying, that might give a little picture to this, is different people that I spoke with within city schools in the different districts also were informed at different points about this, and some only knowing just the day before the cutoff. And so if thinking about people that were already having degrees, they're probably a little bit
How were they?
know of the process.
Do you know how they were?
Most of them were informed from their building principal. Some people haven't the person that informed them, but the principals, I think it came from a variety of different sources. But and like I said, it varied between districts and schools. So just kind of maybe having a little bit more commonality between that, but also giving enough lifetime for those that may not have been in school for a long time to gather the materials, to call all those things.
See, I asked that question specifically because we know we sent the communication report to go out at the same time. We're wondering.
There's a lot of things that could happen.
There's a lot of emails. It does, if you work for the state of Delaware in a school, We're getting 87 emails that have nothing to do with you.
You're telling like.
Exactly. I think it does matter that, we had recent emails and people went, oh, this is great. I never saw this before. All I did was forward the email that they already received. That's what I'm saying, having a personal touch doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And so, because we get a lot of junk mail, so I'm sure you.
I will say, for the next round, I mean, I'm happy to come and talk to your others.
I'll go with you.
Yeah, I think that's always. I run a program, for students at the university, and I try to go to every class if I can, just to talk it up.
Not a bad idea.
Yeah.
Not a bad idea.
Obvious, just for a point of
Final
clarification.
point
And then Claire, it has nothing, here's with scholarship. Highlands,
is John.
formerly Highland,
Thank you.
Dr. Joseph D. Johnson. Elementary.
Yeah, thank you.
Make sure that,
Johnson Elementary.
I'm sure you'll have to remind me that again. But it's in general, even because we still reference it in, you know, when we say high need schools, we refer to it as Highland. It's formerly.
That's where my daughter went, so I struggle with that too. That's just it's sort of unattached.
Yeah.
All right, great job. Again, I think we've had a couple of really good, you know, actionable things that we're seeing results from, and we will continue to iterate and learn from as well. And that's really positive, that we're delivering on that promise. Settlement, work group, Chuck and Aaron, you have some thoughts on the governor's recommended budget.
Aaron Bass, settlement co-chair. Well, done, settlement co-chair. I can tell you about the settlement. So next slide will show you, we are focusing on the settlement, what are the different components of it, and how it lines with the governor's proposed budget. And so we've been studying this since the settlement was passed, and we're excited to say that for opportunity funding, we've seen the minimum, so the fiscal year 24 supposed to have $50 million, and now the governor's proposed budget has $53 million, 45 of which are overall, and then an increase in mental health, which I want to just say I think is really important considering coming back from a pandemic. There is a lot that is happening in education, and so we'd love to see that increase, and thank you very much. Early education, so ECAP funding has doubled and is at $12.2 million. That was the threshold, and so the government proposed budget does meet that need.
Great, next one. So teacher recruitment and retention, $4 million commitment is being kept in the governor's proposed budget. This month, we're just telling you, just reporting out on that, the recommended budget. In future months, we'll take a look at how that money is being used so that we can all understand where it's going. The other thing about teacher recruitment and retention, I cannot fail to mention the incredible commitment in the governor's recommended budget for educator compensation. We did hear about a 3% proposed state raise, but on top of that, an additional 6% for educators. So we'll see how that, we'll see the details of that, how that rolls out as it goes through the Joint Finance Committee and through the legislature. But that's really awesome. There's also another effort, the Public Education Compensation Committee is going on. So we talk about aligning things. There's a lot of things going on that we need to align. But hopefully this focus on compensation is going to help us with teacher recruitment and retention, which is a very acute need of the state. Independent funding assessment is in progress. AIR, I think that's American Institutes for Research.
Yep.
They're conducting it via the Department of Education. They're got focus groups together now, and they're you know, doing their legwork. So we'll see how and where that goes. But that's funded and that's been bid out. That's been fixed. And some things that we're going to it's actually over there. Oh, is this here? Yeah.
Oh.
Some things we're going to we're going to call it complete. K-3 basic special education there, that is in law now, and that's a staged approach to increasing the unit funding for educators for K-3 basic special education to match the 412 basic special education units. Ombudsperson program is in play now, and the equity statement for capital projects was done in 2021. So stay tuned for more detail. Like I said, in future meetings, we want to dig into how this is being used so we can just let you know what we know. Thank you.
That would be great. So we're meeting that floor.
Yes. Senator, you have a question.
So hopefully in the future, there's a lot of money floating around. I've been in the state for a long while.
There's a lot of
County over money, there's 21 money, 22, 23, 24. So I'm hoping next, another month, you'll show those funding sources, what's been spent out of each one.
I don't know that we'll do that. We might look at the Redding ones.
I mean, the Redding, just related to the Redding, the funding that's available for this
Yeah.
committee. And
We-
all those.
I was already- I knew he was.
I'll
I think some on the Redding.
Because there's the WLC Ocean. and then
Yeah, I'm not,
Ocean,
that's,
and
that's,
there's
that chunk man, the organization guy with his back against the wall. But about the Redding, with it.
Yeah, Elena,
That's a great-
our young staff member, Elena Roberts, she's done that to some extent. We looked at sort of a beginning or a pretty extensive version of that at the December meeting, and we can certainly do it again at our next meeting. We'll provide you those materials.
Yeah, share with the members so we can look at, we have questions, we can go with it too. Thank you.
Keep that update. Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. That's it. Well done, as always. All right, cool. So, last but not least, introducing, sort of our main event, our presentation, the data dashboard. I want to hand it over to the co-chairs of the social determinants work group. Right, Jeff. Whoever.
So we've been working diligently to carry out the charge from the original recommendation of 2020, creating a data dashboard to help see Wellington students through an equity lens and highlight the data the way it's never been done before. We, after wrangling through a few hurdles to get the money available to the Department of Ed, who is then engaged in a contract with the Data Service Center to kind of begin to draft out a prototype of the dashboard that we're going to ask Katie Samuel, the executive director of the Data Service Center, to jump on here and maybe kind of walk through really high level what it looks like right now. We've been engaged for about the last, I don't know, since August, actually, since we started back up in the school year, in a series of focus groups to talk about the dashboard with both community advocates, nonprofits, or nonprofit agencies, as well as members of our work groups. You'll see this, the dashboard focus group members who are on here on the slide. We've been involved in that work for about 6 months now, and we're going to ask Katie Samuel to jump on here in a minute to kind of walk everybody through what it looks like. The only thing I will say is do not look at these slides and try to figure out what the data says. So it's not real data. There's actually no data in it because that's phase 2. It's actually getting the data tagged and structured in a way that will meet the needs of the Redding work. So this is just basically a feel for a user feel and how it's going to read and look. So I'm sorry, I don't talk loud enough. I was told I have to be quiet down this end.
No. Oh, I see.
Uh,
Excellent.
We'll turn it over. I believe is Katie. There's the folks who've been doing the focus groups every 2 to 3 weeks since August. It's every week.
Yep.
I believe 2 to 3 weeks. I was wondering why it's so lightly scheduled, but every week. It's been intense. I know that. I get the when I'm not there, I get the link in the master view. So I know there's been a lot of work going into this from that group on there constantly. So it's going to be exciting to see what Katie shared with us this evening.
I just want to underscore the importance of everything that we're doing. This is, several people have raised the question, how are we measuring equity and how do we know if we're making progress towards achieving equity? And this is one very important step indeed.
Awesome. Okay, I think we need just to take a beat to make sure that our sound is working. So, I don't know if I'm going to say talk amongst yourselves.
The goal of tonight is to give all of you a quick overview of the prototype that we've been working on. It is strictly a prototype. So over the past, as Jeff mentioned, 7 to 8 months, we have been working on defining the vision, goals, and requirements for the equity dashboard. And one of the things that came out of those discussions was this purpose statement. I'm not going to take the time to read it, but I can certainly provide it to Haley after this presentation, so you guys have a idea of what the idea, or the purpose, the vision of the equity dashboard is. What makes the dashboard unique is that the plan is to have the addresses, the city of Wilmington addresses, aligned to the boundaries that have been approved by the Redding Consortium, the work group, so that we can, on an ongoing basis, know who the city of Wilmington students are. We don't know that today. That's not in any of the data systems that exist for students. A lot of the reporting ends up being around zip code, and that's not really the area that we want to make sure that we're highlighting in the dashboard. So we've laid the groundwork. We've actually done some proof of concept testing with the data to make sure that we can update the systems that we need to update to actually align City of Wilmington addresses to the City of Wilmington. And then, but that is key to this system working. Without that, we won't be able to have a system. So that's a really important piece of this work. The other thing that'll be different about this dashboard is that the plan is to refresh the data at regular intervals during the regular school year, with the exception of state testing, which is a year-end assessment and its previous year data, as well as discipline data. We decided as a focus group to have year-end data for discipline data, but everything else, attendance, ELA and math proficiency, those types of things, they will be ongoing, probably updated on a monthly basis. Okay, so I'm going to jump into the prototype of the demo. So the purpose of the prototype is to provide guidance to the future development team as to what the dashboard should include. It does, as Jeff mentioned, it does not reflect actual data. This is a pure prototype. So there's no data behind this. It's actually driving the graphs that you're going to see. We also very intentionally selected the color palette for this site to reflect the desired tone of the dashboard. So we did some research to really make sure that we were picking the right colors for the site. And you'll see there's probably, I don't know, 8 to 10 different colors that will be highlighted in the site. All of the images and the text that you will see in the prototype can be changed. So this is really just to show what the design can be for the site, but all of the things that you'll see when the development happens, that can change. And that should, as development happens of this site, it should really be an iterative process and flexible enough to make changes as new information becomes available, changes in requirements, things like that. The charts that you will see in the prototype will have what we call tooltips, and which will give some additional data. I'll show you a sample of that when we get into it. So let's go ahead and take a look at the prototype. Give me 1 second here to grab it. Okay. When visitors first come to the prototype, one of the things that we wanted to be able to do is capture some basic information about the visitors that will help drive future development of the site. This is going to be optional, so they can select skip selection, or they can identify kind of who they best are as they're visiting the site. They will get presented with this one time, and then we'll probably bring it back up on their 5th visit, their 10th visit, and that sort of thing. But they can always come out of it if they don't want to select anything. This will be kind of the information that is first presented to them, the homepage of the site. We've got navigation at the top so we can get to student data and educator data from here as well as about us. This will most likely be the jumping off points because that's what we're drawing attention to is to explore the student data and explore the educator data. Below the primary information, we are stating what the purposes of the dashboard, which is what was on the first slide that I showed you. We also have what is equity. So we have a definition of what the Redding Consortium considers equity. And we also have some information, some disclaimer information about who the students are, what data is going to be represented here, and kind of future plans for the site. And then there's navigation at the bottom. Okay, I'm going to scroll back up. And I'm going to click on Explore Student Data. So this prototype right now has about 100 charts in it. They're basically the same structure of charts. So I'll move through those, and you guys tell me if we've got a time limit because I know we're a little bit past the 7 o'clock. At the top of every page, we are trying to capture the student's voice. Now these are stock photos, and you'll see it's the same quote at the top. So those can all be changed. The plan is to actually interview actual students from the city of Wilmington, have their photos, have quotes from them. We could even have a little bit of a bio if it's agreed by their parent or guardian to do that sort of thing. And then we get into the graph. So the main top level is always going to be kind of state level summaries, that sort of thing. And for each chart, we'll have a description, a disclaimer, where the data comes from, when it was last refreshed, and any additional resources. So the purpose of this is to show, to have links to research or other interesting information that might be related to this particular chart. Okay. So I'm just going to scroll on down because I know, so we've got by school type. So we're going to be looking at charter schools, traditional schools, and VOTEX. We'll break down by gender and race and ethnicity. And then also special programs. So the special programs are 504 special ed, multilingual learners, speech. And then if we get gifted data, we can add that in. If we get immersion data, we can add that in. Okay. This change view is kind of the navigation that will take you to other sections of the site. So if I want to look at the attendance view, I can click on attendance view, and it'll take me to information about high level information about different attendance information. So chronic absenteeism, excused absences, unexcused absences, and tardies. And from here, we can click on a link at the top of each chart and go to details. So for the details, we'll show chronic absenteeism at traditional schools and VOTEX schools. Then we'll also show that information at charter schools. And we'll also have the ability to see it, to pick a district, and it'll list all of the schools in that district, and then be able to filter from City of Wilmington students or non-City of Wilmington students. In all cases, we're going to be showing a percent and counts. Sometimes the percent will be graphed, sometimes the count will, but we'll also have, when you hover over a bar, it'll pop up and give you some additional information. And then every grouping of data will have a data table that has a breakdown of City of Wilmington students and non-City of Wilmington students by gender, race, ethnicity, and special programs. So every grouping has these 4 charts to them. So we can jump to excused absences. It'll be the same set of charts. In the interest of time, I'm going to jump to ELA proficiency. So what we're looking at right now is the state assessments. for the first iteration of the prototype. So it'll be grades 3 through 8 for the smarter balance scores. And then for 11th grade, it'll be SAT scores that we're going to be graphing here. And again, with these, I can click on a link that'll get me to more detail and break it down by district, break it down by charter school, and break it down by all the schools in a district. And then again, the data chart. Okay, I know I'm moving through this very quickly. The other thing that we will have is also other academic information. So what we wanted to show is the availability of AP courses, IB courses, dual enrollment courses that are available to students who live in the city of Wilmington compared to non-city of Wilmington students. Really trying to get at is there equity in what is being offered to those students. So we've got charts around that, CTE courses, and then we also have related arts. So we can start to take a look at offerings in areas of computer science and information tech, voc ed courses, those types of things. So as additional iterations of this site grow in the future, we'll have much more detail about it, but this is all intended to be kind of first level, get a site up and running for equity. So we also have, I'm going to jump to educator. So we're also planning on having educator information so that we have breakdowns by gender, race, and personnel type, and as well as some demographics for each school in a district. Okay. In addition, we wanted to add in a little more information about student and educator ratios. So we will have some reporting that show the number and percent of male students versus teachers versus administrators, that sort of thing. So we'll break that down by school and gender and school and ethnicity and race. Okay. That is the site in a very short period of time. Are there any questions for me? Any areas you want me to jump back to?
Yes, you can hear
You can hear us? Okay, so does anyone have a specific comment or question from that? Sort of abbreviated overview after our technical glitch, but would love to see any thoughts that folks have or concerns or further questions. Kevin?
Nice participation in social stuff. I think it's outstanding information. I think at times how you're showing the data is challenging for how your linear mind thinks. You're looking at a DNA chart, which to someone looks like it. If you understand that, what each little box means, you can understand it. Some people look at pie charts and understand that they're going to pie, that much this, that. And how do you relate the data to the people to understand the impact of the data that we're playing a basketball game and the goal is to shoot at a 10-foot basket, but we're only at 1 foot trying to shoot at that 10 foot, you're at 8 foot compared to other schools. How do you kind of humanize kind of that data? Like I was looking at the teacher ratio. So if the teacher ratio is 4.5 teachers for every 1 student, how do you show that graph? Somebody looks at it, really understand what that means. And that's coming, I'm sure, later on.
Yeah.
The data's fantastic, but you have to understand who is your audience. Audience is us, that's one thing. But I'm a parent trying to figure out how's my kid stacking up to somebody else.
Yeah.
And I think explaining the data to people will be helpful. But the data is, to me, the anthropology of what we're looking at. We all know what's going on.
Yeah.
That's what we do with that data.
Interesting, the presentation, and I know this is our first version, and it's all about what information we're capturing, but so you're saying maybe it's a little high level to the ultimate audience that we're going for, in your opinion? Okay. Yes,
Can we-
back?
Thank you for going through all this. Is there a way we can see this on our own?
Yeah, that would be good.
Because this is
How
hard
can
to.
we we look at this on our own, or is it ready for us to look at it on our own, and why or why not?
So I am, along with this prototype, there's also a requirements document, which is right now it's about 217 pages. And really what it's intended to do is to be able to hand it over to a development team and they'll know exactly how to develop the site. So there's a lot of detail in there. So that both of these are, I'm saying, are 99% done, but I'm going to deliver them to DOE on Friday. So
Oh, yeah, Rick, and then Bettina.
So the question I had, is maybe just more of a data question, but is the student data going to reflect the residential address of the student or where the school happens to be?
both.
Because
I'm
obviously
having a hard time understanding. So if I'm understanding the question, it's, will the site give information about students who live in the city of Wilmington as well as schools in the city of Wilmington? Did I understand that question?
Looking at the student data that says Wilmington, are they talking about the schools in Wilmington, or are they talking about these are the kids who live in the city of Wilmington?
Who
even if they
live in
have
the city of Wilmington,
who
in
happen
this
to
case.
school that's just slightly outside the school.
It has to be reflective of where they actually school. The problem is when you look at the data solely based on zip code, it doesn't allow you to drill down because we could have let's just say North Market. We have students who have addresses within those zip codes that might be 15 different high schools. So that address actually allows you to kind of geomap to actually draw a distinction of where they live and where they intend to. Am I correct in that case?
Yeah.
I'm having a hard time hearing you guys. Is it a phone that you're using?
Don't worry, I got it.
I
We're
think
good.
you got it.
You got it. You got it.
Okay.
Bettina?
To pick it up on what Kevin said and Aaron said, if you can hear me, like you've got a requirements document standard, you've got the prototype you've laid out, wireframes, however you've developed it, they're going to developer next. So the point for any feedback from experts, other than, not me, I'm not an expert, but Aaron or others, that would be helpful is now before the development team starts doing that work. So what is that opportunity for people to provide that feedback before that work is done and it's a lot harder to undo and change?
Once I deliver it, you guys can disseminate it any way that you want to. I think that, like I said, any kind of development effort should be iterative. I think that the focus group, their job was to give us as much feedback as possible to be able to develop the site, understanding it's a first iteration of it. So that's my wishy-washy answer to, once we deliver all the deliverables, you guys can do with it what you want. And then, any development team that works on it, whether it's our shop or someone else, should be open to ongoing feedback during the process.
You know, the word on that.
Yeah.
Well, no, you can do iterative development. You just have to make sure you got a data model right, and then you kind of the base design to do what you want to accomplish. And I'm just reflecting that what was, and it may be great. I had a focus group, so I wasn't, tuned in on all, but just hearing from others, perhaps look at that before that work starts to be helpful.
Yeah.
Seems to me that people who use this information usually compare one school against another school. Right? I mean, if you just look at your school, what does that tell you? I mean, it gives you a number, but I'm not sure you know what that means. So,
I mean,
I'd like to.
I would also look at our, chairs and maybe
hear what they've heard and the focus groups in terms of
Well, I
how
don't know
people
about focus groups. I know the thing is, if you look at these things, they really want to say, how is my child doing compared to this? How is the school doing compared to that? Because if that school does really much better, it's obviously not my fault, it's supposed to be the school. So, yeah, you think that's what people might do? So is this information available for all the schools in this area or just for the schools we're talking about?
If that's the
that-
question, I can't hear anything right now.
What schools are?
What schools are represented? Statewide, thank you.
Okay, so this is perfect, so yeah, because, because it used to be pretty easy to access this kind of information, not this much information on DOE's website.
Yeah.
Then it became really difficult. But, you
Yeah,
know, but
ironically.
it's, yeah,
Be making it easier.
yeah, but it's important information.
It is very important information, yes. Chuck has been patiently waiting.
Thanks. Hi, Katie. Chuck Longfellow here.
Hi,
I don't know
Chuck.
if this is, hey, I don't know if this is for you or the committee, but a 217-page requirement document really scares me. And so when I think about a data dashboard around educational equity, I think about a one-screen view that tells me how are we doing as far as educational equity, and then what do we need to do to get better at educational equity. So I'm asking if part of that 217 pages is something like that, where you can kind of tell at a glance the major levers that we think impact educational equity, if we know what those are, that we can see at a glance what we're getting and what we still need to do. Thanks. Anybody have that?
So let me kind of talk about the document. The document is taking each of the graphs that are here and defining it for a development team. So that's why it's pretty expansive. And I think the goal of this first iteration was to get as much information that we could actually get our hands on relatively easily, which is discipline, attendance, proficiency, and course data, and start to build the site over time. One of the plans for the site is that after 3 years, we'll start trend data and start showing information over time. But there was a lot of information that the focus group wanted included in this first iteration. And over time, I think that can become more, I can't think of the right word, but kind of what you described, Chuck, that I'm not getting words for right now. So.
Got it.
I think I got
One of the challenges we face, this data is not, no one's passing judgment on this data on this site. This isn't saying one thing's better than another. This is just straight raw data for people to look at, or the mayor said, see, okay, how are students in City of Wilmington doing at X school versus the non-Wilmington students at X school? Just to be able to take a look and see raw numbers. There's no interpretation, there's no like passing of judgment in what's doing better, what's doing right. Just looking at pure numbers, city versus non-city Wilmington, which you haven't been able to do. People talk about students in the city of Wilmington, but it doesn't exist. Darrell's point, 1980 whatever could be up to the edge of Hocassin, but not really all the way down in the city. So the goal here was to have academic related data that educators see every day. What educators see eye tracker, and literally this is public facing eye tracker for those who use data services to share and inform the public around the different academic, attendance, behavioral, what type of teachers are in the classrooms in front of students for city and non-city students across the county as well as across the state. Every school we see is going to be in there.
And I think some of what I'm hearing, what I agree with the concern is that we want to, I guess it's almost questioning, should it be judgment free? I don't know if that's the right way to put it, but because we don't want to face unintended consequences, people looking at the data as if it's pointing and shaming. We want it to be, create motivation for change. We see gaps
with the goal of being remediating those gaps instead of just saying, look at those terrible students, look at those terrible schools.
No matter how well intentioned you are.
How do we prevent that from happening?
Right, yeah, you can't ever.
I don't know.
The disclaimer
On that.
is all about.
All right, one at a time.
Like, what the disclaimer is, like, it's not intended to kind of judge you, like, all those disclaimers that you can't see on there, on the pages are stressing the importance. It's
Yeah.
not intended for that purpose.
Right,
You couldn't do it even if we stripped it down to the bare food. You're gonna compare X to Y no matter
Sure.
what.
sure. No, I think it's an interesting thing that
But the dashboard needs.
Superintendent Grant and then
I
Aaron.
think the bigger point is when you look at it based on address, it also gives you an opportunity to look at overlying data, right? So let's say that we have a high stress, high chronic trauma community where students might be going to 13 different schools. So if we mine that data, we can actually start to look at trends within a specific neighborhood within the city to look at support, to look at services that we are really, so I think that also needs to be a disclaimer to really look at what other data, non-academic data sources are being populated so that we can start looking at trends, to look at a more holistic approach to, and I'm saying from Redding, right? When we start talking about community partnerships and services, where are their access? Because if we really want to be transparent about the fact that a lot of youth serving community centers and organizations, our children just aren't going, right? And why not? How can we use this data to start informing this work a little bit more in depth and not use it as this school? Because there's going to be information or data bias already just by perception that we're populating this based on the city. So I think we need to be clear about going into that, regardless if people are going to use this for other purposes and other reasons to justify a completely different narrative than what the intent is. So it's intent versus impact, but I would just say what are the other social determinants of health or social drivers that we're looking at to help look at some of those broader trends so that schools can be conduits, because in the end, our schools are microcosms of the communities that we see. And we see that trauma playing out right now, to Aaron's point, post-pandemic reality of escalation of behaviors and trauma and everything that's playing out in this space. So really triaging or looking at a triangulation of data sources would help us really get to some of those root causes to help address some of the other things that we see are factors such as high rates of teacher turnover and all those other factors that people use as that, and teacher quality.
Oh, well, and I hate to do this, it's almost 7:30, so I don't know if anyone else has a really, really key point they want to get in. You know, last hand perhaps, or we can also wrap up this conversation. I know there'll be opportunities to.
Thank you, board on it though.
But thank you, social determinants. Very good. You can tell by the conversations that these generate that they're important and they're, I think, heading in the right direction. So thank you to every work group reported. I think we have really productive, you know, maybe outcomes, if you can say that, but certainly we're heading in the right direction with our group. Very proud of that. So with that, so with that, I think we do have some public comment to receive, perhaps, I don't know, we'll see. But this is, I see one hand. We'll offer 3 minutes judiciously, knowing that everyone's here 30 minutes already past their time, and we'll see if we have anyone online who would like to speak. But I see our friend Bill Doolittle. Uh-oh. Yeah, we'll make sure we can hear you.
So I think what you're doing is great. At the high level, it worked well. At the real level, it would be incredibly frustrating for everybody who tries to use it. Delaware, for some reason, uses an N15 mask on data. I tried to work within that. You can't get to where you can make tweaks. Also, civil rights uses an N5 mask, what Delaware should be using. So until Delaware decides that they're going to actually follow FERPA the way it's supposed to be followed, the drill down data is going to be.
Thanks, Bill. FERPA is free. Thank you. can't report on data if there's fewer than 15 people. Okay. Thank you. Do we have anyone online who wanted to comment? Yeah. Okay. Well, going once, going twice. I think we have an adjourned meeting. Thank you all for being here.